Today is Monday, April 8th. It's 1 o'clock, so it's time for our study of Aesop's Fables. Um, in the fall, we left off on Fable number 114 in the Academy's Aesop's Fables course. The subject is the oxen and the butchers. So we're going to pick up today with that fable. We'll read through the fable together. We'll talk about the moral of the fable, or one of the morals of the fable, or maybe a few of the morals of the fable. We'll look at the characters and try to understand why Aesop chose the characters he did, why he chose to teach the moral lesson that he did in the way that he did. That's one important thing to learn about the fables. And then we'll talk about some applications of the moral lesson of the fable in our own lives, and I'll try to help students make their way through these fables as quickly as they can because there's over 400 of them, so we can't take too much time if we're going to get through them. So let me share my screen here and we'll jump right into the fable of the oxen and the butchers. This is, again, I'm pretty sure is fable number 114 in the Academy's Aesop's Fables course, the oxen and the butchers. Once upon a time, the oxen took counsel together and resolved upon ridding the land of all the butchers, who so constantly led away the finest and fattest of their number to perish by the axe and knife. They were on the point of proceeding to carry out their plan when a wise old ox prayed them to reconsider their intentions. "You may be certain," said he, "that men will not go without beef. If then we kill the butchers, who are already expert in their trade, and who put us out of pain as quickly as possible, we shall be hacked and hewed by others who have yet to learn the business." This sensible reasoning prevailed, and the plan dropped to the ground. This is the fable of the oxen and the butchers. All right, so let's look through this fable and make sure we get all the details, because as I always say, the truth and wisdom of the fable is included in the details. A wise man, and again, I've said this many times, a wise man will write what's necessary. He won't include any details that are not necessary, and he won't leave anything out that is necessary. You can trust that the details are important because it's the writing of a wise man. So when we see Aesop give us detail, we should know that that's important, or he would leave it out. And if he leaves things out, he does so intentionally, and so that's not important. So we've got two characters in this story. We've got the oxen and the butchers. And when we first think about that, we may think, well, they don't seem like they'd have a very good relationship, oxen and butchers, since butchers butcher oxen, right? They kill oxen and cut them up for meat. So it seems off the top that this would be a bad relationship, the oxen and the butchers. And so we read that the oxen, in fact, are planning to get rid of all the butchers. They're going to get rid of the butchers because they don't want the butchers killing them anymore. And so they think that if we get rid of the butchers, we'll save ourselves. And as they're about to take up this plan, as they're about to start attacking the butchers, a wise old ox tells them that this isn't such a good idea. And the reason why, he says, is men will not go without beef. So even though you kill all the butchers, which is just one part of men, even though you kill just the butchers, you're not going to solve the problem because men are still going to want meat. The real cause of the problem is not going to go away. You're not going to solve the actual problem, which is the fact that men want beef. That's why there are butchers. That's why they kill us. That problem is not going to go away. Now, the butchers, he says, the butchers are actually pretty good for us because they know how to kill quickly and painlessly. And so even though they may kill us, they do so in a quick and painless way. So if we're going to get killed, it's probably best for us to get killed by butchers because at least it's not painful. But if we get rid of all the butchers, the people who actually know how to kill us quickly and painlessly, because they're going to kill us no matter what, that's not going to change. If we get rid of the people who kill us gently, what's going to happen then? They're going to kill us violently. We may suffer terrible deaths. We have no idea how they would try to kill us. And so it's better for us, since the problem is never going to go away, it's better for us to leave the butchers alone because the butchers will give us painless and quick deaths. And this is the advice of the old wise ox, and the other oxen accept his advice. So that's the fable, that's the story and the details. Now we've got to work to get to the moral of this fable. And I think you could use that line, men will not go without beef, as sort of a summary of the moral of this fable, okay? Men will not go without beef. In other words, the problem is not going to go away. The real cause of the problem is not going to go away. And so the moral lesson of this fable is that if you can't remove the cause of a problem, if you can't remove the cause of a problem, you should be very careful about what you do try to get rid of. If you can't remove the cause of the problem, you should be careful about what you try to get rid of, because you might make things worse. All right, I think that's pretty clearly the moral lesson of this fable. And I can give you some examples. Okay, some examples. We see this all the time in politics. In politics, men are asked to find solutions for human problems. But the human problems are not going to go away. The human problems are not going to go away. And since the problems are not going to away, sometimes the solutions that men propose, which may sound good for us, may actually be worse for us. For example, let's imagine that in the United States, our political enemy is Russia. And so we've got this enemy in the Russians, and this is how it's presented to us politically, right? It's America against Russia. America is this military superpower, and Russia is this nuclear superpower, these two great nuclear superpowers that have nuclear weapons and all this kind of stuff. And we say, oh man, the Russians, they really threaten our lives. If we could just get rid of the Russians, we'd be safe. And this is the idea in political messages. If we could just get rid of the Russians, then we'd be safe. And that might sound like a good idea, so we might try to get rid of the Russians. But think about it. In all reality, war is never going to go away, right? Humans are always going to compete. Humans are always going to be sinful. They're always going to be violent and destructive and selfish towards one another. And so if our enemy is Russia, and if Russia decided to fight against us, they chose to use nuclear weapons. To tell you the truth, I'm not afraid of nuclear weapons because, like the butchers, they kill us, or as he says here, the ox says, they will put us out of pain as quickly as possible, right? The idea of nuclear war, even though it's terrible to think about, it's not that terrible when you compare it to other kinds of warfare. And so we might say a nuclear enemy is actually better than a less modern enemy because, like the butchers, like the ox says, a nuclear enemy may put us out of pain as quickly as possible, but we shall be hacked and hewed by others, by more primitive forms of warfare. Who would you rather have to go to war against? A nuclear superpower where if there was a war, it'd be over in seconds? Or a more traditional opponent with simpler methods of fighting that might fight with swords and knives and bombs and all kinds of violent, destructive things that leave men crippled and wounded terribly, put citizens in fear of injury or kidnappings and things like that. If war can't be removed, if the real problem can't be solved, then are we sure that the Russians aren't our best enemy, our preferred enemy? Because if war does break out with the Russians, even if we die, it's going to be quick and painless. And that may not be the worst option. So you can just see how it's a different way of thinking about our problems. If you can't eliminate the cause of the problem, if you can't take that away, then we've got to be careful to consider what the best option might actually be. It might not be what people think about at first. Okay? So that's the moral lesson here, I'm pretty sure, of Aesop's fable of the oxen and the butchers. If we can't remove the problem, we've got to think carefully about the different symptoms that we try to take away. Another example of this, another application might be with respect to healthcare and medicine, right? We can't get rid of death. We're all going to die. We can't eliminate death. So when we think about diseases and sicknesses, we think about these things, we should ask ourselves, if we're going to die no matter what, if death is unavoidable, should we really be trying to avoid certain diseases, especially when we're younger? Let's imagine that I found out that I had a disease and I'm 49 years old, still relatively young, strong, I can think clearly, and so on. If I'm going to have to face death at some point, do I really want to escape death every chance I get when I'm young and leave myself to face death when I'm old? Or might it be better actually to face death when I'm young, when I have a clear mind, when I can think, when I'm strong, and I can possibly die well? That's a different way to think about it. If I found out I had cancer and doctors told me, well, we can give you these treatments and we can possibly help you to overcome cancer, that initially sounds like a great idea, and usually everyone jumps at the opportunity to try to eliminate a disease. But what if another disease might follow later in my life that's even worse than cancer? What if I might suffer later in life in a way that would be even worse? Or what if I had to suffer for long, long years from aches and pains and all kinds of problems? Or what if I had to live in solitude, alone and lonely and unhappy for years and years and years? Cancer might not be the worst enemy. Cancer might actually be a quick and painless form of death. So you can just see that when we can't eliminate the cause, we can't eliminate death, we can't eliminate war, we can't eliminate poverty, we can't eliminate hunger, we can't eliminate sin. When we talk about dealing with problems, we see that we've got to think a little more carefully, because the troubles that we have, if we get rid of them, might be replaced by worse troubles. Because the real cause of the problem that's underneath all of these things, that's not going to go away. Or another moral lesson of this fable, another moral might be, if you're not going to go after the cause, there's no use going after the different symptoms of the problems. If you're not going to go after the cause, which is that men will not go without beef, that's the real cause of the problem. If we're not going to address that, then there's no use killing the butchers. That could make things worse. And so a wiser plan for the oxen might be to encourage men to desire other meat. You know, think about if you're familiar with the advertisements for Chick-fil-A today. Chick-fil-A has their famous billboards where they've got, black and white spotted cows telling people to eat more chicken, right? That would be a good solution to this problem here of the oxen and the butchers, right? The oxen should get together and explain to men why they should eat more chicken. Send them all to Chick-fil-A. That's how you could actually solve the problem and make men stop desiring beef, which is actually the cause of their being killed. So you can see that another moral, like I said, could be to go beyond the symptoms, the signs of the problem, go beyond that and consider the real cause and ask, how can we eliminate the cause? That's what we really want to do. We want to eliminate the cause of the problem. And so the problem is that men want beef. So rather than just trying to kill the butchers, which doesn't really make any sense and may make things worse, why don't we try to cause men to desire something else, like chicken or vegetables or whatever? And so it teaches us to think more carefully about how to solve our problems, to work to identify the cause and then fight against the cause, try to remove the cause. Since I was talking about medicine before, it's important to understand that this is a major difference between ancient medicine and modern medicine. Often in modern medicine, if you go to a doctor or go to a hospital, they'll immediately attempt to try and relieve the symptoms. So you say, oh, my arm hurts. They'll give you some medication for pain. Or you say, oh, my stomach hurts. And they'll say, oh, we can take out your appendix and the pain will go away. They often work to eliminate the symptoms. And sometimes they even let the patient determine what should be done based on how they feel. They give medications and things like that based on what the patient asks for. And really, it's up to the patient what the doctors and nurses do. And you can see how that can be unwise, right? It can be unwise to try to remove the symptoms rather than focus on the cause, because the symptoms could actually be good for us. For example, I could have a problem in my body that's serious, and the symptom is that I've got a headache or that I've got pain in my chest or that something doesn't feel right. And that pain could actually be a signal that something's wrong that could help me to then search out the cause and fix the cause and actually regain my health. But if I just try to eliminate the symptom, take some medicine to make the headache go away, I could actually be making my situation worse. So you can see we have to be careful. Modern medicine often quickly treats the symptoms and tries to make the symptoms go away or remove something that might be a problem. But we have to ask, what was the cause of that? What was the cause of that? If I eat bread and then I get a sick stomach, and you say, well, don't eat bread. Well, that's not really the solution, because human beings are supposed to eat bread. We're supposed to be able to eat bread. If I can't eat bread without getting sick, there's got to be a problem somewhere. Humans are supposed to eat bread. We shouldn't just say, oh, don't eat bread. That's not necessarily the solution, right? There might be a deeper cause of my problem that makes me not able to eat bread, or that makes me get sick when I eat bread. So we've got to think deeper and go after the real causes of our problems and not just treat the signs of them without addressing the deeper problem. Okay? So we can say two morals can be drawn from this. They're related, but they're different a little bit. One is that if a problem can't be removed, if the cause of a problem can't be removed, we should really think carefully about about how we should try to solve our problems, because we might eliminate one thing and make our situation even worse. We should be careful not to settle for simple, reckless solutions like these oxen were about to do. And then secondly, this fable can also teach us to think carefully and make sure that we do consider the cause and seek to figure out the cause. In medicine, this is called diagnosis, where you try to figure out what the cause is and then try to eliminate that cause. That's the right way to solve a problem. And like I was saying before, in ancient medicine, that's what ancient physicians like Hippocrates tried to do. They tried to identify the real cause of the sickness and then eliminate that cause. For example, you could be living in a town that has polluted air. The air is unhealthy, and that polluted air could be making you sick. And here you are trying to mess around with the food you eat and take medicines and all kinds of stuff. And the problem is actually caused by the air that you breathe. Doesn't matter what foods you avoid, doesn't matter what medicines you take, the cause of the problem is still there, and you're not dealing with the cause. Hippocrates in ancient medicine would try to determine what the real cause was. And that's why if you read history books and read biographies about people, you'll find out that when a person had a certain sickness or disease, the doctor would actually make them travel to a different place and stay in a different place because the air was different or the temperature was different, and allow their body to recover and see if being in a different place would help them. Some people with allergies, for example, say that places like Arizona, where it's drier, is actually better for their allergies. Changing location can take away the cause of the problem. So you see that this work of finding problems, finding the causes of our problems, and trying to solve them requires some wisdom. We can't just try to eliminate symptoms. Say, oh, I've got a headache, quick, get some medicine. Oh, I've got this problem, quick, kill the butchers. That's not how we need to solve problems in life. We need to think more carefully about what the causes are, and then based on what the causes are, come up with wise plans for how to remove those causes. And if we can't remove the cause, be careful about what we get rid of, because we might make a bad situation even worse. Okay? So that's the fable of the oxen and the butchers. And I'm going to stop there for today because that's a good fable to think about. We took about 20 minutes, almost 30 minutes to go through that, and I don't want to start another fable today. So I'd like you to read on your own this fable of the oxen and the butchers. I'd like you to reflect on it some more. And since I've explained the moral, and you don't really have to work too much to answer questions about the moral now, I'd really like to challenge you to think carefully about the application questions. I'd like to challenge you to think really carefully about how this fable applies in your life. I'd like you to think of a problem where you have a problem like the oxen, and you think about a way to fix it. And then you say, wait a minute, maybe that's not the best way to fix it. Maybe it's actually better for me to keep this problem because something worse could happen. Or maybe I really need to figure out how to eliminate the cause underneath this problem. I want to challenge you to really concentrate on this one fable and see if you can think of some good applications. Maybe talk about it with your parents. Maybe they can share some ideas. They have some of their experiences. Talk about what a good application of this fable might be, because that's what these fables are for. They're for you to think about. They give you an illustration to use in your life to help you to have wisdom, especially when there's moral issues to think about. So we're going to stop here with this one fable for today, the fable of the oxen and the butchers. And I want to challenge you to really think carefully about the application of this fable and see if you can come up with some good examples. And if you come up with some good ones, I'll share them on the forum, and we'll talk about them a little bit. So that's all for today. The fable of the oxen and the butchers. Pretty easy fable to understand, but really important fable. Very important for life. Very important for making good decisions when we face difficult situations. Not to be too lazy, not to be simple, but to think carefully, to think about the causes of things, to go beyond the surface and think more deeply about what's causing our trouble, if we can eliminate that cause, and if we can eliminate that cause, whether some solution might be better, even though it seems bad at first. It's very important for political questions today because we can't eliminate the problems. But we have to find the best solutions possible. So I hope that's helpful. I'm going to stop the recording now. If you've got any questions about anything, we can chat about it. But that's going to be all for today for new content, the fable of the oxen and the butcher.